Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I decided to post a video today. It is a one-shot of a Bakukiri story called Video Game. Anyway, yeah guys, I hope you enjoy the video. And sorry if the voices are bad. Anyway, on to the story. The night seemed to drag on as Kirishima stared down his homework. He wasn't dumb, but he wasn't the sharpest when it came to certain subjects. The redhead had recently taken a shower. Therefore, his vibrant, usually spiked, hair was laying down against his face. He lazily pulled it into a low ponytail and continued to stare at the seemingly impossible worksheet. A few moments later, an almost inaudible groan escaped his lips. He couldn't help but think how pathetic this was, that he couldn't do something so simple. Kirishima thought for a moment, begrudgingly picking up his phone. He just so happened to be friends with one of the smartest kids in school. However, the boy only happened to excel at almost everything, not including human decency. Bakugo was, how you put it, not the best at people, although he seemed to not resent Kirishima as much for some reason. Whatever that reason was, he appreciated it. He opened up their messages and waited a split second before beginning to type. Hey, sorry I know it's late. Any chance you could come over and help me for a bit? I'm really struggling with this homework. Kirishima set his phone back down to his previous position. Not even a minute passed before his phone dinged. 10 minutes. He sat there a moment, furrowing his eyebrows. Did he mean he'd help him for 10 minutes? Or he'd come and be over in 10 minutes? He assumed the latter, but we were talking about Bakugo after all. So who could really know? Kirishima had been resting his head on the desk when a sudden aggressive knocking at the door startled him. He slowly stood up and walked towards the door. When he pulled it open, he was less than surprised to see a pissed-off-looking Bakugo. Hi, the redhead smiled gently with his sharp teeth and tucked some loose hair behind his ear. Bakugo's eyes narrowed, following his movement. What's up with your hair, shitty hair? Oh, Kirishima yawned. I took a shower. The blonde hummed and nodded slightly before pushing his way past his friend and then making his way into the mostly clean apartment. Kirishima took the opportunity to stare at the blonde. The blonde wore gray sweatpants and a red hoodie, which at the time he didn't realize accentuated his friend's eyes perfect. On the other hand, Kirishima wore a white and black checkered hoodie with a black pair of exercise shorts. The redhead had always known that he wanted something a bit more than friendship with Bakugo, but internally he knew that there was no way someone like him was gay. The thought hurt him, but he realized that them being in a relationship was probably never going to happen. Nonetheless, he couldn't help his heart beating faster or the shaky, nervous feelings. Even after being friends for years, Bakugo didn't even know Kirishima was gay. Speaking of, he should probably tell the blonde at some point. Thanks for, coming over. Kirishima laughed softly, scratching the back of his neck. Bakugo walked over the out-of-place, disheveled desk. He lifted the paper his friend had been struggling with all night, lifting an eyebrow while questioning the redhead. This the one causing you problems? Kirishima nodded slightly before sighing. Yeah, it's probably really simple. I know, I'm stupid. Nah, the blonde smirked, almost unnoticeably. Bakugo had never been great at expressing his feelings, but when it came to Kirishima, it was more confusing than anything else. Most of his life, he thought he was straight, but that was until he met the redhead standing in front of him. There was just something about him, something no one else could make him feel. Bakugo tried not to treat him different from the others, but it was hard. If he said something too harsh, he would always immediately grit. He hated the thought of making his friend feel bad. Well, Kirishima froze for a second. Thanks? Just sit down, shitty hair. The ghost of a smile crossed the blonde's lips. The redhead made his way toward their usual study spot, the coffee table. Want something to drink? He asked, turning his head before sitting down. Bakugo walked around to his usual side of the table, answering while sitting down. No thanks. Kirishima raised his eyebrow at his friend's word choice. Okay? Let's get started. Bakugo pointed at the first problem on the page. Time skip. I just don't get it. The redhead sighed as he let his head fall sideways onto his hand. Well, the blonde shrugged. Kirishima cut him off while laying his head into his arms. I'm not even going to be able to pass these regular classes. I'm not going to be allowed to become a pro hero if I can't do simple stuff like this. I'm just a failure. Kiri. Bakugo grit his teeth as he moved his pencil onto the redhead's paper. Stop overthinking, you clearly know the material. Kirishima couldn't help but lift his attention from his arms, his eyes meeting those entrancing red ones. Kiri? He questioned. lowering his eyebrows and tilting his head slightly. He broke his stare and looked back down at his paper. That's new. Yeah. Bakugo sighed loudly. Whatever, shitty here. Sorry. Kirishima sighed as he tried to ignore the stinging sensation in his eyes. I'm being oversensitive again, aren't I? Just a little. The blonde smirked. Don't stress it, though. Bakugo averted his gaze from his friend before whispering something he knew he'd regret. It's cute. His face flushed as he avoided direct eye contact. Kirishima was sure his own ears had betrayed him, yet he couldn't help the sudden heat flowing into his cheeks. Bakugo didn't really say that, right? Not him. He would never do something so bold. Wait, except he would do something that bold. Kirishima couldn't, and wouldn't let this get his hopes up. So he decided to act like he didn't hear what the other had said. A few silent moments passed before someone broke the thoughtful silence. Let's go play a game and give this a break for a few, yeah? Bakugo suggested, standing up from the table. Kirishima simply nodded and followed him over to the TV sitting in front of his bed. The redhead grabbed the controller and plopped himself down on the bed before sitting with his legs crossed. Bakugo followed suit and sat down beside his friend while letting his legs hang freely off the side of the bed. Time skip. What was that? Were you trying to kill yourself? Bakugo raised his eyebrows at his friend while holding back laughter. Kirishima's eyes widened as his mouth hung open. I don't know. The blonde couldn't hold in his laughter after he saw his friend's facial expression. Kirishima looked over at his friend, laughing. His heart felt like it was beating out of his chest at the sound of it. He needs to tell him. He needs to tell him before he loses the courage to. Hey, explosion boy. The redhead gently punched the other's arm as he swallowed. Bakugo turned to face him, his face dropping for a second. He put his controller down. You good, bro? The blonde questioned, looking at his distressed friend. I have to tell you something. Kirishima shook his head gently. I need to tell you before I convince myself not to. The mood in the room shifted quickly. Bakugo's voice was filled with genuine worry, even with his usual harsh tone. Yeah, of course, man. What's up? After all this time, he was finally going to tell him. Kirishima took a shaky breath before speaking. I'm not straight. His head dropped as he stared into his own lap. You're serious. The blonde's eyes widened a bit as he stared at him. You're not joking with me, Kiri? No. The redhead's voice cracked slightly as he tried to keep his emotions in check. I'm not. Dude. The blonde smirked. Thanks for telling me. Kirishima couldn't detect the emotion in Bakugo's voice as he spoke. What? He raised his head to look at his friend, a singular tear escaping and running down his face. Don't cry, shitty hair. Bakugo couldn't help but smile. Well, you're smiling. Why would you thank me? The redhead asked, tilting his head and regaining his manly composure. Bakugo scoffed, because I never could have come out first. Kirishima's heart stopped. You're kidding, you can't be serious. No, I'm bisexual. The blonde shrugged, turning his attention to the TV screen that illuminated the dark room in a blue hue. I just never thought it was important enough to bring up. He smirked as he looked back to Kirishima. The redhead's jaw could have hit the floor. I'm speechless. That's a first. Bakugo laughed, nudging him. Kirishima couldn't help but smile at that. He knew it was true. Yeah, I guess. A small dramatic sigh left the redhead's mouth. Why did you feel the need to tell me? Bakugo raised his eyebrow. You're smart. Kirishima's eyes widened as a wild heat spread across his face and his mouth went dry. I'm sure you figured it out. A moment passed, but I could be asking the same question. That wasn't true. Bakugo only came out because he did. What else could he say? Oh, you think I have? A devilishly smirk was now placed upon Bakugo's lips. He moved to pick up his controller and motioned for the redhead to pick up his. A few silent seconds later, he spoke. Also, I'm not sure you could, Kiri. You're right. Kirishima sighed. I just can't tell if you're playing dumb or not. Bakugo raised his eyebrows for a second. I never play dumb. Kirishima couldn't physically speak. Did Bakugo really know, or was he just messing with him? Let's play. The blonde spoke as he pointed to the countdown screen. They spent the game in silence, except for a few muffled curses from Bakugo. A few seconds before the match ended, Bakugo smirked as he discreetly slid one hand off his controller and placed it on top of Kirishima's. I guess I should be leaving. The blonde sighed, tapping his finger along Kiri's knuckles. Kirishima jolted slightly. No, you should stay. I haven't even finished that paper. Oh, that's right. The paper. Bakugo's smirk didn't let up as he raised his eyebrow. Wouldn't you rather play some video games? He knew. Anyway, that's the end of this one shot. I'm sorry if my voices weren't on point, but I kind of suck at doing Kirishima's voice, but not the point. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed.